Manchester is such a fantastic hub in the UK for rock music. A lot of great bands, or even waves, genres of music have been started out of Manchester. This is one of the most famous bands from Manchester. They were extremely successful. It's funny, I've actually never heard a Stone Roses track. This is my very first track of theirs. So I've been reading a little bit about their band and their style, how they made a version of indie rock, or they called it neo psychedelia rock. And apparently what had happened with the band, it's kind of a tragic story in the sense that they had a breakthrough album in 1989 called The Stone Roses, and it led to a huge breakthrough, acclaim, commercial success. And what they wanted to do was jump onto a bigger record deal, a record label. And it meant a battle between their record label and a bunch of other deals and labels, and eventually they settled for Geffen Records and released their next album 5 years later, so a long stretch later, and it was released to like mixed reviews apparently. So only 2 albums in the discography, but a whole lot of influence and regard and acclaim was accumulated from just those 2 albums, particularly the first album. This is one of their most famous songs. Let's check it out. Let's hear what the Stone Roses is all about. I Want to Be Adored by the Stone Roses. Sounds like we're in a factory. Right? Buzzsaw. Like a butcher's, maybe. Very working class start. Very Manchester of them. Now, as I understand it, this was the first track of their first album, introducing their sound. Very dreamlike. Love that guitar line. Oh, wow. Okay, that guitar line is absolutely gorgeous. That dreamy kind of flittering notes. I think this kind of describes it really well. Where it's like almost like little chimes. It's wonderful, and it adds to the dreamlike atmosphere. And I think they added those like industrial noises in the beginning for a reason. It to me almost comes off the effect of it is like if you ever worked like a labor job like I have, you know, I've worked a bunch of different ones, but I used to work as a chef in a pub, in a bar, and you're just like cooking things, cutting things, and your mind is completely in another place. And I think that's what was happening there. It sounded like industrial noises, or maybe the noises at a butcher's. Very working class of them. Makes sense, them being a Manchester band. It has a lot of heart to it. The idea that you're at a labor job and you're doing this thing, but your mind is completely elsewhere and you're imagining this happening. Very cool effect. Oh, I love that. Turn it up, dude. First record, first album. This is basically your introduction to the world. What is your sound about? And if this is what the sound is about, it's an unbelievable one. It reminds me a lot of Joy Division, Ian Curtis. This is certainly more melodic. Ian Curtis was more, how do you describe it? he had a deeper voice. It was less dreamlike than this. His one almost sounded like a nightmare at times, but very similar style. And Joy Division is from Manchester too, so it makes you wonder about what was making people make music like this kind of strange fantasy world that was being created. Okay, so let's get into the actual lyrics. I don't have to sell my soul, he's already in me. What a brilliant line. What a brilliant line. The idea that, you sell your soul to the devil, but the devil's already inside each of us. So there's no need to do it. Love that. Love that perspective. Hi-hats. Okay, the effect of this track is almost, especially because the context of it being their very first record on their first album, is probably playing on the writer's mind, the idea of selling out, right? You're about to become successful. And he's saying to himself, he's almost reiterating to himself the idea that of this thing that happens in music, you sell your soul. I mean, Pink Floyd talks about it a lot. Welcome to the Machine, Have a Cigar, all these different tracks that are about this idea of selling your soul out to the record industry. And he's saying kind of a different take, a different perspective of it. It's like, there's no need to have it. Evil already exists in me. You don't need to look elsewhere. It's going to be me if I mess up. And then the second bit is, I want to be adored. Again, going into the idea of this dude, the scene that I picture is him working a menial labor job, some kind of regular salary job. He's in a butcher shop, he's in an industrial factory with all those noises going on, and he's in a fantasy land where he's a rock star. I want to be adored. He's imagining crowds and what could be of his life. Really cool, right? Love that sound. What a great record, man. Love this track. Back to those noises again. Look, the dream, the fantasy dies down. He's back to real life, maybe. Wow, what a fantastic introduction to this band's sound. Makes me very curious to hear more. What I take away, especially from this record, is the idea of Manchester as a kind of hub for fantastic music. Joy Division, the Stone Roses, even coming later on, was Oasis, right? And they all have this, when I think they are the best, like this dream-like or fantasy-like effect that they create through the sonics of the track, especially the guitars, the way that they're layered. And it makes you wonder about the people there. I think that's what I always take away. When Seattle was having its moment of this dark grunge music with all this kind of pain and anguish in it, you think about the people and the lives that they were living there. And you think about the same thing about the late 80s, or 80s, you should say, Manchester, what it would feel like, and these people kind of wondering theater-like fantasies in their music. You know, even okay, I'm stretching a little bit, but for the football fans out there, you know, Old Trafford, Manchester United's football ground, is called the Theatre of Dreams. This is a bit of a stretch maybe, but the idea of fantasy living out in music, in the football, in the sports, in the culture, really cool takeaway that I can get from listening to different bands from Manchester. Regardless of that, great record, man. Loved it. Loved the sound of it. Loved the dude's voice. He is very melodic. Remind me a little bit of Radiohead, slightly. I think Radiohead might have been influenced by this band. Who knows? And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the melody, that flittering melody that would come in every now and again in the background. That was fantastic. Fantastic track.